Hoping to get a grant of up to 7.5 grand as a self-employed person? Well, in this video, I'm going to run you through the key need to know. As a business accountant, my team and I spend all day long helping business owners on their journey. As you can imagine, that journey's been somewhat of a roller coaster during the coronavirus, but what we have had at this particular point is a lot of HMRC and government support available if you fit the criteria. We're going to touch on that in a moment. And what I wanted to talk about in this video is the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme, Grant 3. We're on the third one now, and there's a fourth one scheduled. We don't know the details quite yet, but what I would say to you is as we're going through this, I'm going to skip and recap briefly some of the criteria, but if you want the real details, check out the previous videos we did. I'm sure we'll either link them down below or up above, depending where you're watching this, but do check those out if you really got a need. But I think you can skip straight to the other thing I'm going to show you, because HMRC will tell you if you're eligible or not, and there's a way to check that online, so I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. So before we get into this video, make sure to click the subscribe button below if you enjoy this type of content and get notified whenever we release another one just like it. So Self-Employed Income Support Scheme Grant 3, apart from being a mouthful to say on camera this early in the morning, that is a grant that's available to you as a self-employed person. So take out the fact of limited company owners. Unfortunately, if you're a limited company owner watching this, this does not apply to you. It's the tax version of self-employed, which is normally the people that are in businesses where they're submitting their tax return each year with all of their income on, and it's all taxed through there. You know, no limited company in sight, basically. So what happened was these grants were available. You applied for them online, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment and give you some links near the end of the video on how you can do that. But for now, just know that it was an online application, and HMRC told you what they felt this grant was. Now, the grant was based on your 18-19 tax return, which seems an incredible amount of time ago now, bearing in mind that the 19-20 tax return, many people would have submitted, and everyone else has to submit it before the 31st of January 2021. So we are coming around for, a whole another year since then, and we've still not got a grant that's reflective of that income. So for a lot of people, it was really bad news, and they didn't qualify because, let's say they started to go self-employed in the 18-19 year. One of the criteria was that over half of your earnings had to be from self-employment, and of course that might not have fitted depending on your circumstances. So there are a lot of hard cut-offs where people just missed it and have had no support for this. So when I do feel for those people, it's a real problem. I'm hoping that if this pandemic carries on, obviously I'm not hoping the pandemic carries on, but if the situation carried on, I'm hoping that the government would then look to extend this fourth grant or tweak it based on further earnings. But it's a problem for a lot of people and for the government because of anti-avoidance. But that's where we are. So criteria-wise, it's quite strict. Now, I could go into the detail of that, but I'm not going to, because you basically don't need to know. You only need to know if you want to moan about it, in effect, because what you do is you go to the Revenue and Customs site, and I'm going to put a link down in the comments that shows you how to go and get that. And all you do is you click on it, and you can fill in a few very brief details, and it will tell you if it thinks you're eligible or not. Now, if you are eligible, all you've got to do is go through a very quick form, put in very similar details in, same thing, again, there's a link in the comments, and you'll be able to take him through and be able to go and get the grant, and it's normally paid very, very quickly. The grant's going to be paid in one instalment. Now, at the time of recording this video, you've only been able to apply for the grant for 1 day. So at the moment, I've not seen it paid, but in theory, the money should come through very, very quickly straight to your bank account. And again, HMRC are telling you what this grant is going to be, and it's capped at a max of 7.5 grand. I've not seen a 7.5 grand one yet, but they are technically available, but it is based on your average trading profits from your previous 3 years tax returns, or less if you've only got less in using that 18-19 year. So that's where we are with that. And as a reminder, it is taxable. So you have to be a little bit careful of this. I especially think if you work in, say, like the construction industry and you're used to getting a rebate and you've had quite a few of these grants, you've got to be very, very careful. I think that's a whole other video that we're going to do, but they are taxable. So just bear that in mind when you're getting this money in. It's technically replacing your taxable income. So they are subject to tax and national insurance. So that's all fine, but obviously if you need it, it's there. The one thing I want to talk about though is there is a difference this time round. So to claim the other two grants, all you had to say was, I've been adversely affected by coronavirus. Now, nearly everybody in business has been adversely affected by coronavirus to a degree, unless you're in one of these industries that's rocketed. It's been an interesting sort of roller coaster at some point. And of course, there's no definition of what adversely affected is. It could be, they give you some examples of where it was pretty drastic, but ultimately it could be either end of the scale. But the wording's changed on this, and it says that you have to have new and continued impact from coronavirus from the 1st of November to the 29th of Jan. Now the problem with that is you have to basically tell the future, because they're asking you, if you're applying for it now, you know what happened in November as to whether you've been impacted, but you don't know what's happening in the future. So just bear that in mind. You have to have basically been continually have problems. I think they're just trying to say to you, look, you might have had problems back in lockdown 1, but if you're back to normal now, we'd rather you didn't claim that, please. So bear that in mind when you're claiming it, because you do have to tick a statement to say that. So that's it. But one final thing to mention is that this grant needs to be applied for by the 29th of January 2021. I'm sure for most people who desperately need this money, you're not going to wait that long, but just bear it in mind, because once it is gone, it is gone. So that's it. Check the links in the description, get yourself the grant, and we'll see you on the next video.